So, back to the game reviews, are we? I personally am not too big of a fan of the horror gaming genre, though I am willing to make a few exceptions now and then. Take this what you will, but the only horror games I've played are Five Nights at Freddy's, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, Master Reboot, and Amnesia: Machine for Pigs. Yeah, I'm chicken when it comes to these. As for this one, I decided to test my fate. Because 1, this is a very new game. 2, I didn't see any videos, so I went into this pretty much blind. And 3, it seems to be a popular choice for now. Something I don't usually go for. But this game is something worth looking into. So today, we're going to be looking at a game called Little Nightmares by Tarsier Studios. Let's see, where do I begin? As with a few other games I've mentioned before, this one is completely dialogue-free, so nothing's explained to you by anyone in the game or any narrator of a sort. Far as I'm aware, or from what I got, you are this little yellow girl named Six, and the key aspect of this is to escape the area you're in. I say area because even after finishing this game myself, I really don't have a clue where the heck we are. I first thought this was some sort of prison or somewhere on a submarine, but it shifts to an apartment building, then to a kitchen, and I'm just left more confused than anything. That's pretty much all you have to do, and all you need to do while avoiding the residents of this place. Since most of this game is set indoors, it's mainly dark, and a sense of not knowing what's coming at you can give you chills on more than one occasion. Now into the game's functions. As far as the overall controls go for you, it's pretty functional, if not slow. The entire game is not a speed run, so there's times you have to hide and wait until the right moment to get moving. And considering you're about the size of a literal mouse, that's really all you can do. You are able to walk, run, jump, crouch, pick up things, and light a little match to help you see. But there is no attacking, so once you're caught by any enemy in this game, that's it. You're done. The puzzles in this game are a bit tricky for a first-time player, but once you get your bearings together, it can be handled fairly well. Most of these usually involve, 9 times out of 10, for you to get from one point to the other without getting caught or killed on the spot. Sometimes you also have to locate keys and the occasional lever hitch to go forward, which can pitch you into even more trouble if you don't know what to do. I'm just going to say this now, and say this game is disturbing as heck. I don't even know what half of these things are or what they're supposed to be, but they all look decrepit, deformed, disgusting, and considering all of them are bigger and faster than you, deadly. I can't decide on which one actually disturbed me the most. I mean, they all have some factor to it. When it comes to them, though, there's 4 types you need to watch it. The janitor, the chefs, the guests, and the lady. First, there's the janitor. To be honest, when I was playing, I referred to him as Mr. Shoemaker because of his giant room full of shoes. The levels here revolve around him, need you to keep as quiet as possible or lure him away with sound. Regardless of either or, you're going to have to really watch yourself going through, and it can get tense on where he'll just pop up next. This thing is built much like a demonic gibbon, and he's constantly reaching around with his giant arms practically everywhere in order to grab you. Next, there's the 2 chefs. At first I thought these 2 were actually going to be Siamese twins or something, but no, it's just 2 twin brothers working in the kitchen. When it comes to their gameplay, staying out of sight is your best hope, though I found them the easiest because many of their levels have plenty of hiding places. I do admit, though, the death animations with these guys are a lot more varied, from shoving you into a fish's head to tossing you into an oven. Speaking of fish, these guys must be expert anglers, since they often seen working with fish, and have a swordfish and a shark hanging in their kitchen. That is not easy to do, trust me. It's still very hard to try and dodge these guys, since unlike before, there's two that you have to worry about. And I'm sure you don't want to be a part of their side dish special. Then there's the guests. Out of all the enemies in this game, these things are the most numerous. Hundreds coming in from a boat, and tons more as you go through their levels. These gluttonous slobs are the main reason for the chef's work, and you see them constantly eating meat and try to eat you. Still, these things are just sad to look at. These obese troll lookalikes dragging themselves across the floor to reach you like a fat leech with legs. You simply have to stay out of their reach here, but so many levels here put you way too close for comfort. Still, the last part of this place does get your heart racing as they all try to get you, like a wave of flesh and open mouths. And finally, we have the lady, or as I call her, Madame Geisha. And this is where things get more paranormal. This odd lady just shows up at the very start of Six's dream, and this old hag is supposedly in charge of the whole activity here in the first place, concerning how you see her observing the guests arrive earlier. I am not going to sugarcoat it, this lady is a ghost. A ghost in a kimono and an expressionless mask to hide her face. Which is weird considering we find her humming in front of a broken mirror working on her appearance later on. For who? I don't know, but we'll catch on that later. Anyway, as far as enemies go, this lady is actually the least threatening. The janitor, chef, and guests all pose a threat, but this lady doesn't try to attack you until near the end of the game. Still, it is freaky to try and escape a deeply thin, ghostly figure such as this. There is another detail in this game. One of these includes these tiny gray figures, which official resources call gnomes. A name that actually fits them pretty well. These things are smaller than you are and don't really do much other than scurry away when they see you, which actually help you on your way. I don't know if the others inside the place see them or not, as while the chefs ignore them completely running around in their kitchen, Mr. Shoemaker races after them both at one point. Ironic, but whatever. Other, much smaller enemies can be found here too. The first one that poses a threat to you are leeches, which are self-explanatory. And then there's an invisible enemy chasing you in that shoe room I mentioned earlier. A sort of homage to Amnesia, I bet. These things don't stick around very long, so there's not much significance to them in the overall game, other than to just scare you. Overall, this game is completely disturbing, but enjoyable. I'm pretty sure that is what they were going for after all. Of course, you're going to need to buckle down for some rather creepy content, visually and simplistically. So, in the end, I recommend this to you. Now, normally I'd end on that note, but I did notice something else when it comes to this game, and that many people are questioning the story itself and trying to explain the ending. And the ending, I'll say, is, well, it left me speechless, I'll tell you that much. But still, it did got me scratching my head on what this lore is all about, and many sorts of tidbits left in the shadows all in all. So, let me see if I can get my own idea on how Little Nightmares is put together. To begin, let's go over what we know. First thing is the guests, who apparently arrived to this place overseas in order to eat. Looking at their behavior confirms that their gluttonous lust for food is an extremely severe one, to the point when they'll eat any kind of meat, including you if you get caught. The chefs, obviously, have to prepare these meals for these hungry customers outside, and they need to prepare a lot of food, just from what we see with how much the guests have in front of them. Throughout the game, Six also ends up going through these sort of starvation spells, when she too has a craving for meat, which gets worse as the game goes. Other details are shown in here as well, which include a figure that has committed suicide, hanging from the ceiling very early, and another point later during the first starvation sequence, a lone figure actually throws you some meat to eat. And may I also point out that we don't see this figure again, so let's try to see what we can put together here. The location of this place, known as the Maw, is far from any known land, but is also considered a popular destination for many a visitor across the way. The ones behind it all is the geisha and her husband, or once was. During a point in the past, her husband ended up killing himself, leaving the geisha a widow in charge of everything. Depressed over his death, the geisha hid from reality and refused to even face it by hiding her true face behind a mask, and removing every single mirror to never having to face it again. Unfortunately, the rising customer demand stressed her out even more, and this drove her to far more demonic methods to sustain her existence in once prosperous business. At first, she mainly used this as a sort of enhancer for the meals prepared, spiking the meat so it would become irresistible to any customer who ate it. As time went on, she went on to create some more aid in her work, the janitor and chefs made out of things like sewed-up fabrics or dolls, in the same magic she used for her meat. At first, things went rather well, but this same magic that made her meat so delicious also had an unforeseen effect on those who ate it, turning the customer into a being of gluttony, and the desire to eat and feed grew so bad that they end up eating anything, no matter what it is. This high demand began even more bothersome when supply started to become too low to sustain, so Madame Geisha decided to make a more drastic measure: the children. As there is plenty of customers, there's just as many young plump humans to make a wonderful sausage meat. So led to the current situation. Kids are being hidden away on the ship, much like pigs in a slaughterhouse, and when they grow nice and plump, the janitor would take them, sew them up, and transport them to the kitchen where they would be cooked and served to the guests. The guests, under the spell of the magic, would think nothing of it and blindly consume the meat without any second thought. Now, what about Six? According to what we see with her attempts to escape, it actually shows what happens if a child stays alive too long in this place. Since there's no possible way to grow any sort of plants to eat, the children were fed the same meat as the customers did. Yet since this was the same meat, the curse also begins to take effect on them as time goes by. It doesn't start immediately, of course, as one kid is even willing to give you a chunk of meat near the beginning of the game. However, each starvation sequence shows the curse getting worse and worse. You go from eating meat to eating rodents, and then this. This horrid drive to consume takes its toll on practically everyone, you included, and the deadly sin of gluttony is distributed as fast as every meal on a plate.